The issues discussed on the Roll Call Room podcast do not reflect the opinions of any specific agency. Any characters discussed on this show may be fictional for comedic value unless you're a shitbag Steve. This podcast is rated explicit and listener discretion is advised. Do you want to help the Roll Call Room podcast keep going? Of course you do. Join Patreon and pledge to the show each month. Tiers start at $5 and you can get some pretty cool shit with it, including swag and access to listen to episode clips early. So put that Starbucks coffee down and help my dad keep the show going. Don't be a fucking Steve. Go to rollcallroom.com to pledge today.
You know when there's nothing left to do but to fight? With everything you've got to get back up. There's a word for it. Resilience. And that word comes down to such a simple test. Not much involved. But in the moments that matter most, it's everything. You and a mirror, looking into your own eyes and realizing there's nowhere else to go but up. And being ready for what that takes. It's a single decision. The same decision you'll need to make every day. Get up. Get up. Get up. It's what brings people back when an injury makes it look to everyone else that all is lost. But it's not. It's what gets someone to write letter after letter after letter, looking for a job because they know all they need is a start. It's what causes someone to keep moving straight forward even when the start of their journey should have knocked them off track. You and a mirror. Same decision every day. Because the thing is that comebacks mean the damage is already done. Comebacks only happen after things get hard. It happened, and only you know how dark it gets. Resilience and grit. These aren't pretty words. They mean something much more to those who know them well. These words have scars. They symbolize the battle, but they are also the gateway to something so special. It's what it means to lose 8 elections, be in bed for 6 months after a nervous breakdown, then to get up and do what it takes to enter the books of history. It's the power behind getting rejected 12 times before smashing almost every record and every ceiling imaginable. Resilience. That's the word left when the storms keep coming. When things go from bad to worse, every reason to stop trying. The moment we all get humbled by at some point. Sometimes more than once. There are times for dreams. And sometimes there is only time for the reality of now. Picking up one foot, then the other. Starting to move forward step by step. Tears and frustration, another step. Hurt and sadness, another step. Shaking off what was, you just keep going. It's the light that finally breaks after the darkest of nights. In the moment that matters. You and a mirror. Same decision every day. Knowing it's going to be long. Knowing there is no other way. That is resilience.
You're listening to the podcast that changed the game and rocked an entire profession. Talking about shit in law enforcement that keeps poor leaders up at night. When others run scared and hide behind fake policies, the Roll Call Room podcast tells it like it is. No bullshit. No matter how hard these Steves try, we keep killing it. And now, here are your hosts, Nick and Mark.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Roll Call Room podcast. With me is Mark the Cop, my co-host. How are you, buddy? How's everything going?
Everything is going fantastic. And welcome, everyone, to the Roll Call Room.
Yes, this is a new era, a new beginning, new everything. We've got so much going on in the background. Expanding the Roll Call Room, incorporating new shows into the Roll Call Room, a new media company that we'll be announcing pretty soon once we can figure everything out.
We got to get the lawyers involved.
Yeah.
Send lawyers guns and money.
They're not suing departments for us. They're working on stupid shit like this. But hey, I'm excited to have Mark come on the team. I think it's good. If you don't know Mark is from The Shield Within, and then we also did a couple of crossover episodes off duty and on the air, which have been super, super successful. And Mark and I, we talk to each other way too early in the morning.
Thanks, PTSD.
And for the longest time we've been like, we should be recording these phone call conversations. So now we are.
Here we go. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that is kind of the joke. It's like, are you recording this? This is good stuff.
And some great things are going on in the background, like our YouTube channel. So this is being broadcasted on audio and on video. So everybody that's checking us out on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe, like and share. And we're doing that because just like Mark, like I listen to a lot of different podcasts. I listen to Your Mom's House podcast and Two Bears, One Cave and Joe Rogan and all these other ones. And I've kind of steered away from just the audio. I like to go to the video. I like to see, see who's talking to me, especially like, facial expressions and the passion when you're talking about something. And, the stuff that we talk about is extremely passionate, especially to Mark and I.
Oh, yeah.
We talk very, very real. And I think that upset some folks fairly recently for me. And we'll get into that. And that's what this episode is about. I talked to Mark a couple of days ago and we were like, what are we going to do the first episode on? And I will tell you, I'm seeing more and more lately about police reform, Mark.
Well, it gets down to what are we going to reform? I mean, I think a lot of national stories are like, well, those guys need more training. Well, let me tell you something, folks. There's I don't want to say a fine line between reasonable training. I mean, what do you mean by training? And most people don't know what we're getting. In some cops now we have online training, which is an effing joke. I can tell you that right now. Just a waste of my time. For those who don't know, I was a patrol sergeant for 9 years, and there at the end of my career. And part of my duties was to make sure that my guys did their online training. Oh, we got to show the training hours. But a lot of times is that police reform doesn't need to come from the guy that's pushing a cruiser around. That guy working midnights or gal working midnights, they're the one that I want to go catch the bad guys. It's just like me when I was a young officer, here, just point me in the direction. I'll go make it happen, boss. And my experience has been, especially over the past 3 years, is that I think the changes need to come up in the corner office. I think it's above captain and lieutenant. I think the person that's steering the ship is the person that we need to reform. And the biggest thing is where you and I, Nick, we come to common ground. It's because the number one population that's killing itself right now in the United States is law enforcement.
Yeah.
Go.
And I'll take it a step further. I think police reform, the narrative police reform, is bullshit. I think it's fucking bullshit. And I'll tell you why.
Sure, go.
I agree with you 100%. When you see everybody on social media and you see some of these safe podcasts talking about, police reform, we need police reform, we need to defund the police, we need this and that. And they are two separate subjects. So
yeah.
defunding the police and police reform are two different subjects. If you try and blend them together, one, you don't know what you're talking about, and two, you're a fucking idiot.
With all due respect, you're a fucking
With all
idiot.
due respect, and you probably have a master's degree.
Oh, no
so,
doubt.
It frustrates me because when I hear about police reform, it's always the same thing. Like you said, it's in the same sentence. It's Joe Motor Cop or Joe Street Cop grinding every day for over 20 years. That's the guy or gal that they hang their hat on for police reform. And it's bullshit, because I'm going to give an example of what I mean. Let's talk about the Tennessee Five for a second. Let's talk about what happened in Memphis. Okay.
Yes.
What they did was horrendous. There's no justification. I don't care if, when I hear other podcasts try and justify uses of force, excessive uses of force like that, it makes my blood boil, because you shouldn't be a police podcast at that point. You lose all credibility, because anybody that's listening or watching this and says what they did was justifiable, you're in the wrong fucking business, and you're the problem. You're the reason why we have the problem. But let's take those 5 idiots out of the equation. Let's start climbing up the ranks. Okay. First of all, and I've said this on multiple podcasts that I've been a guest on, during that entire video, I never saw a white shirt. And those that are not in law enforcement, a white shirt, typically back in the day, and there are still departments that have it. My old shitty department still has a white shirt. A white shirt is the rank of sergeant and above, typically.
Yeah.
Some of them, it's lieutenant and above, whatever. You're a position of management.
Right.
I saw none of that. So then I start looking at things. And Mark, correct me if I'm wrong. When something like that happens, who's the first person who jumps on the fucking sword? Who's the sacrificial lamb in an incident like that?
Oh, the officer.
Well,
they're go ahead.
The chief.
Yeah, yes.
They're typically going to be in the crosshairs, and typically the city manager or the mayor is going to zero in on that chief and be like, resignation or termination. You make the decision, resignation or termination. But Chief Davis from the Memphis Police Department is still there.
Yeah. She's
still there. And what gets even worse is that this isn't her first dance at the rodeo with something like this.
Yeah.
When she was the police chief in Atlanta, she had a group. So the group in Memphis, they were called the Scorpion Unit.
Yeah, like Scorpion, something like that.
First of all, whoever fucking came up with that ops plan to name that team the Scorpion,
it's because you go out and you sting them.
It's fucking like this day and age, like it just makes me laugh. You know that operations plan got passed around like at least 15, right?
Yeah, we would hope anyway.
Yeah. In my old department, that would have been scrutinized, and they would have been like, Scorpion. No, we need something more like, the fucking Teletubby.
The Goo Goo Dolls.
Yeah. But I digress. So this Chief Davis, she came from Atlanta, and she was shrouded in controversy before she even came to Memphis as the chief, because she had an anti-crime unit in Atlanta called the Red Dog Unit, which is a super aggressive street crime style unit that had been sued multiple times for excessive use of force, violating rights.
Oh my.
Covering things up. I mean, just to the point where it was disbanded in 2011. That's how bad it was. I mean, it has to be that bad for you to disband something like that.
Oh yeah.
And she goes over to Memphis. Scorpion Unit is in place, or she puts it in place. And then this incident happens with the Memphis 5, and she does this press conference. She gets in front of, 15 American flags, and she's toting, this is atrocious and all this other shit, but she keeps her job. Like, so when we're talking about police reform and we're allowing somebody like her to continue to be a leader in law enforcement, to me, the argument collapses on itself when you're talking about police reform, because Joe Street Cop has he has nothing to do with policy at all. He has nothing to do with it. That I think that's what gets me is that we have police chiefs in place that have been passed around from department to department like a fucking peace pipe.
Yeah.
And it's encouraged.
Well, I think the problem is that the most of the time the councils don't have a clue, because they're the guy, they're your grocer, or I was a council person in a small village in where I used to live. I was there for 2.5 terms, and if you're looking for a chief, because we went through a chief or two, and we hired from within. And I was against that, but the current candidate, the mayor liked him. So you kind of had that small town Mayberry-ish feel to it. But when you're looking at a larger police department, I don't feel that the people that are hiring these folks really have a good resource for vetting a lot of these professionals, because, let's look at their resume. Oh, it looks really darn impressive. And my question is, in my mind, being a patrol sergeant, it's like, when the fuck did you have time to take all this schooling? I mean, who the hell's either you're super good at time management, because I can tell you what, it was all I could do to go to court. We worked 12-hour shifts. I mean, I couldn't go sit in the classroom because that's the type of learner I am. But so online is your only deal. But I guess where there's a will, there's a way. At the same time, where do these people go to vet these folks? So wouldn't it be cool if there was like some type of association?
Here we go. You know what? We're 12 minutes into this thing, and I'm already going to get.
Wouldn't you think that there would be somewhere that they could?
If there was only an international organization for chiefs of police, and I'm just going to cut right to it.
Go right to the jugular.
The problem with these chief of police positions is that they go to the IACP. And the IACP, to me, is the pimp.
Wow.
I go back and forth with them on Twitter, and I don't give a fuck, because they aren't doing anything for the line officers at all. They are not doing anything for mental health for law enforcement at all. They are the biggest fucking pimps out there for poor law enforcement leadership. They have no database whatsoever for poor police chiefs that get passed around over and over and over again. They hold these conferences every year where they sit around and they circle jerk each other. And they hand out fucking acrylic awards for the dumbest shit. And they pack their conferences with these fucking yellow brick pricks. And what I mean by yellow brick pricks is these pricks that go to the FBI National Academy, and they get their yellow brick at the end of it. And they hang it up on the wall behind them. And you could always tell how much of a dick that person is by the level of how they display their brick. If they just take their brick and they put it on the desk behind them, they're a low-level brick prick. But I had this douchebag prick son of a bitch at my old.
Don't sugarcoat it, Nick. Tell us how you really feel.
I'm not letting into this. This motherfucker got a whole entire chapter in my first book, and he's the epitome of positional equity leader. He's a scumbag. So he was a lieutenant when I got he was a sergeant when I got hired. He got promoted all the way up to deputy chief, and then new prick chief that I got fired demoted him down to a captain. And then, like a little baby prick, he retired. Nobody walked him out the door. Nobody celebrated his retirement because he was a prick. He had a reputation for being a prick. And now he's over at the sheriff's department.
Oh, nice.
That I worked at. And the sheriff that's over there he's another fucking knucklehead. All of his crony friends, a couple of them that I went to the academy with, are all now deputy chiefs. like deputy sheriff.
That's kind of the new. I think that's the new thing. That was a phase here in Ohio. Is we're not going to have captains, or we're not going to have whatever. We're going to make them all deputy chiefs.
Yeah. And so I see on their social media, I see this prick at a community event, and he's got his 2 little stars on, and he's right back to being in a position of power. Mm-hmm. And he is a prick. He is what I call a morale cancer. He comes in and he fucking infects an entire agency. And from the folks that I talk to still at that agency, they all say the same thing. He's still a prick. So I'll go back to my prick comment.
Is it based on this guy?
Yeah. So this guy, when you would go in his office, when he was a deputy chief, when he had a decent size office,
right?
He had his brick on this mahogany stand.
Oh, elevated brick.
Yeah, with a case over it. Do you know how much of a cocksucking prick you have to be to physically go on Amazon or Google and find that display case?
Yeah, where do you find mahogany brick cases at? Is it one of these deals where you have the model car and you take the model car out and you put your brick in?
That's what I think. You know something? See, that's the kind of prick mentality he had, where he was like, I can't find a display case for a brick, because no human being with a fucking brain would display a brick. Okay, so he probably put in there die-cast racing car display case.
Take the tucker out and put the brick in.
I wish that was a fly on the wall for the unboxing of that package when that brick opened it up. No, it's not even that part. It's this part. It's the part of, and for people that have video, you can. Here's his display case that he got, and here's his brick. Him going like this. Wait.
My life is complete.
and then that prick carrying it from his home into the office and putting it on the shelf, finding the sun hitting it the right way. But
taking selfies with it.
Yeah. These are the positional equity pricks that I'm talking about, where they're not even taking the message from the amazing training that the FBI puts on for the National Academy. And I'm not taking anything away from them, because there's a lot of great people that come out of the National Academy, better leaders.
Oh, by far. And
better leaders. But the majority of those folks, and this is no dig to the National Academy, because they don't have any say in who comes over. What they do is they go to agencies and they say, this year, you invite one of your folks from your agency to come over.
Yeah.
There's no vetting on behalf of the FBI National Academy. They leave that up to the agency.
Right.
And I know in my agency, it was not based on performance. It was not based on you being a good leader. It was based on a list of commanders, and they slowly went down the list.
You cup the balls.
Right. Well, and the funny thing is that you have to do physical fitness in the National Academy. So
they run their ass off. I've had several colleagues that have gone to FBINA. Matter of fact, if I would have stayed on the job, that was one of my aspirations. It was to go to FBINA. To go through the process here in Ohio. I started with. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry, I don't want to derail.
No, you're good. And you wanted to go for the same reason that I wanted to go, which was I wanted to gain more knowledge on being a better leader. Like I went to FBI LEDA Academy, which was probably the best training I've ever gone to. And I did the trilogy. I did the supervisor, the commander, and the executive level to get my trio.
Because at one point I wanted to be a chief.
Me too. And I mean, I don't think that that's off the table right now. I just don't want to be a chief in the current climate that we're in, because.
Well, Nick, I'm going to take it to task on that.
Go ahead.
And first of all, my opinion is Nick and I are really super, like-minded on so many different ways. It's kind of like finding a new friend going, really, you too? But, kind of with
Astroglide. I use KY. Use
Astroglide. Yeah, that's right.
Soy based.
Yeah, soy based. So yeah. Anyway, but I don't awash all of, especially some of these associations, and where we pick on IACP is where I really wish there would be some type, and if there is, fans, contact us at our either website or the email that's up on the website. Let us know that is this committee out there. With IACP, I don't like to throw the whole batch out, but I do see a lot of times they stand around and congratulate one another and not vet one another. It's kind of like they're afraid to. It's like, oh, well, we know Bill's piece of shit, but we don't really want to give him the duck test because that might hurt him from getting a job somewhere. And when it gets down to it, is that policing needs to be about the people and for the people. And that also goes for our officers. And in my area and in my experience, growing up watching cops and say, man, that's what I want to do, man. How do I do this? Because I went.
Get on it, Mel.
Yeah, get on it, Mel. Come on, Gary. But Gary, if you're listening, please reach out because we'd love to have you on the show and interview you.
Answer my fucking face.
Exactly. Nick's been stalking you relentlessly. Here, I'm humming again. Sorry, it's too early in the morning. I'm more of a supporter because there's a lot of great chiefs out there, and there's a lot of great. There still is, guys. I mean, we talk about the worst, okay? So we I don't want to say celebrate, but I want to put a light on those knuckleheads that are making your life miserable as an officer out there. Because I can tell you, until you've experienced it, good Lord, yeah, it really does affect everything in your being. And then you have to sit back and hopefully you stay tuned in because we really got some good stuff coming up in some future episodes about how to, I wouldn't necessarily say combat, but how to take care of yourself once you find that this prick in the corner office with the brick under a glass has put a crosshairs on the back of officer whoever. How do you survive that? Because you do have the rights and protections that's built in for everybody through your union, through your rights as a citizen, et cetera. But I don't want to go down that rabbit hole yet. But the whole...
it's coming.
It's coming. And we're also going to have some resources on the website, which is kind of like the new beginning of the roll call room. But those guys, the bad ones, is the ones we're talking about. And it's those ones that are exceptionally bad. And Nick had said in earlier episodes, you can watch these guys migrate around the nation and the suicides at those. This is what gets me is the suicide rates go up at those agencies. And it's just appalling. It makes me want to vomit. It's like, why are these people being hired? Why don't they have a red asterisk next to their name somewhere? And why don't you guys pick another career? For those of us, Nick, you were a road sergeant, right?
Yeah.
And then your path was, and your passion was, let's get out and reach the community. And I love the way you said, whenever there's a problem with the community, they start writing checks out of your department. And what that means is how do we go out and how do we fix this? And here, Sergeant, go do something to fix this. Well, they had no idea what they did in community relations, but it's a very important part of our policing role. And me as a supervisor, you take care of your people. And when you have these agencies that are absolutely policy first, and I have a joke, morale patch on the side of my training helmet that talks about accomplishment made by how many policies you have named after you. Now, I wasn't a rogue, but I challenged management, and you should challenge and keep those people. Well, this is a great idea. Well, do you want my opinion? Yeah. Well, I'm going to give it to you. No, it sucks. And that's probably my downfall because I was very direct. And I've been told, a little direct there, Mark. You need to kind of soften the blow. Well, I was a midnight sergeant, so that just kind of came out of my being, But my point is that the bad chiefs out there, we need to get them out of the system, gang. The good chiefs, we need to celebrate. And the good chiefs, I really hope you guys have a mentoring program because I think we've lost that as an industry. We've lost the mentoring. We've lost the people to look up to. And what's really cut us in half, I think, right now, is the fact that so many of us, these old bastards like me with 30 years on, bounced. We got out. And now you got 2-year officers on the road training the next officer.
Yeah.
What are they being taught? What examples are you using?
Well, and you touched on quite a few things, so much so that I had to write it on my Alzheimer's paper.
On a roll.
I'm gonna go back to that IACP only because I just love picking on them because they're easy to pick on.
Yeah, they're an easy target.
I would respect them so much more if they did one or multiple of a few things that I'm about to suggest, and those that are of you that are the project managers that are listening to this from IACP, because I know you are. Sure. Because I've tagged them multiple times in Twitter. I've called them out multiple times, and they get pissed off, and I really don't fucking care. Do one or a couple of these. Okay. One, bring back credibility to your organization by inviting folks like Mark and me and Scott Medlin and all these other folks to go speak at your conventions. And you won't do that because you don't want us talking to police leaders and telling them that the majority of them are a bag of shit. and you don't want that. You don't want somebody like me to get up on the stage of 300 people and say, officers are eating their guns because of all of you. It's not the job. It's not the fucked up shit that we see. It's not the relentless monogamous fucking calls for service over and over. It's not the countless hours of overtime to make a living. It is your poor leadership. If you did that, I would respect you. But instead, what you do is you have these speakers come, these keynote speakers that are safe. They're safe.
Yeah.
They need your business. They are hookers to your pimping. They need you
to buy their product.
Business going over and over and over. They are former law enforcement, but they've been put in a box where they're confined and restricted on what they can say, because if they say anything out of turn for you, you'll cancel them. You won't invite them back. You won't endorse them for other speaking engagements. And it's a perpetual prostitution, because what happens is, and I'm just going to make somebody's name up, Steve, we're going to bring him back. New listeners, you'll discover who Steve is. Steve is a bag that does nothing. So that's why his name is Steve. So Steve, you invite Steve to come up there, and he does this fantastic speech, this rah, rah, rah speech. Everybody stands up at the end. They all clap. And at the end, they circle jerk him. They blow him. They do all this shit. And they buy his book or manual or whatever the fuck he has, right? And then what happens is all these piece of shit chiefs of police, they go up to Steve and they say, hey, I would love to have you come to my agency in Colorado. And another one goes, oh, I'd love to have you come to Ohio and talk to my officers. And then it's a networking thing. And now Steve's got 11 months worth of speaking engagements lined up because he's safe, because the chiefs that are the problem in law enforcement know that Steve is the go-to guy when morale is low. I can bring him in and he's going to make my troops feel better, but he's not gonna go against the grain, and he's not gonna turn it on me that I'm a shitty leader and my fellow commanders are shitty leaders. So it's a perpetual fucking prostitution. That's what it is.
Well, Nick, I think that most, and I'm going to take it to task, and that's one thing that we agreed about here is, and we're going to be real with you. I think that a lot of leadership out there, the good ones, listen to their troops. And there's some leadership that I've been around. I come out of the car business, and there's a local major dealership here in my area. And when that guy goes to his dealerships to visit and make sure everything's running right, he doesn't start with the general manager. He starts out in the back with the wash rack guy.
That's the right way to do it.
Yeah, and he makes the general manager is the last person this guy talks to. And he gets the view from the bottom up. So I always recognize that in my leadership ability. And I was the only sergeant at my agency that asked, because we talked about the joke of the eval, right? which will probably come up in another episode because I really want to revisit that because that was so much fun. But I always gave my people a peer review before mine. And here, guys, and it was 1, 2, or 3. But I told them I can't fix me if I don't know what the problem is. So I'm confident enough in my abilities to know that, well, you really pissed me off here, Sarge. Okay, well, that's one incident. Did I consistently piss you off? Is there something that I consistently do? I want to know what that is so I can fix it, so I can evolve and I can develop as a leader, not as a manager. And in my state, you can learn through the local academy, or not the local academy, the state academy, about how being a manager. But there isn't a lot of leadership training because our local Chiefs of Police Association has a pretty hard lockdown on that, which isn't bad. I mean, the product that I went to, which is Police Executive Leadership College, I thoroughly enjoyed, and I wanted to go to the next level. But then I had to kind of balance myself. I wanted to go, we have a kind of like a miniature it's called Public Safety Leadership Academy, PSLA, that Ohio State Patrol puts on. I wanted to go to that one. And my chief went, what? This is owned by the patrol, not OACP. And I'm like, bro, my eventual goal is PELC, PSLA, and then I want to go to FBI NA. I want a big broad spectrum. I just don't want to have, and where I'm going with this is that hive mentality. And what I mean by hive mentality is that you'll find some really great chiefs or leaders, sheriffs, that are innovators. And it's only one. Yeah. And that innovative guy, everyone starts copying them, which I feel is the problem within the industry. So if we're going to start, in this, I'm going to get into it. Now we'll hold that for another show. What I was going to say was unified policing, which is what they're doing out west. But I think we need to save that for another day. Be that innovator. I know if there's some good ideas out there, don't just, I'm going to white your name out and put our name in, because there really isn't any copywriting, which is fine. So if you got something good, but the problem is, what if it's an idea that everybody thinks is awesome, but it's really shitty?
Yeah.
And there's where the problems come in.
And I see it now. Like my old agency that I came from, I ended as a community policing sergeant. And so my whole job was to come up with crazy, innovative things to engage the community.
Yeah.
And I would come up with stuff like I would call the person who was in charge of the police foundation, who basically fundraised money for the community policing unit, which later she cooperated with the investigation that got me removed. That's a whole other story.
He's committed many felonies. No.
He's stupid enough to believe a fucking II, But anyway, that's a whole other story. And so I would come up with these crazy ideas. Like I like so crazy that I took, like, one idea was I took my Suburban that I had and I turned it into a gaming truck.
Oh, cool.
So Best Buy, bought a flat screen TV, a gaming unit, a fucking sound bar. I'd roll up into the hood and we play Madden for 4 hours.
Oh, fun. Yeah.
It was freaking great. So now my old agency is having shootings, just like everywhere across the United States. They're having shootings every couple of days, over and over and over and over and over.
Yeah. What do we do?
And so now all they're doing is cookouts.
I was going to say pizza party, but here we go.
Wait, this is a T-shirt that's coming. Cookouts fix crime, like pizza party fix morale. Listen, you could barbecue all the hot dogs and hamburgers in the fucking world.
Yeah.
But if the people in the community see you placating them, and that's what I see a lot, not just from my former agency. My former agency does it to the fucking nth degree. Like, they do these coffee with cops events. It's so fucking phony, because what they're doing, and it's obvious, is they're scared because the community is outraged. Because the community that the agency that I used to work at is super fucking liberal. They hate guns. They hate the cops, the whole fucking 9 yards. But now, because guns are flying, the bullets are flying back and forth. Now they're pounding on the door And the police chief that's there now, that shouldn't be the police chief. He's not qualified to be the police chief. And the only reason why he is the police chief is he meets the demographic of what they need.
Right. So let me jump in there, and I want to slow your roll, but it's funny how these guys live the definition of insanity.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
You put a person in there that's horribly incompetent, but they hit all the check boxes. Why do we have crime in the community? I think the best example is what Rudy Giuliani did for the city of New York back in the 90s. It's the broken window theories. The guy that's spitting on windshields or jumping to turnstiles. No, that's the guy doing the big crime.
Yep.
It's only less than 1% of the population where we have problems. Go arrest those guys.
It's a deterrent, which is if I'm a shitbag and I see that I'm going to get locked up, not a ticket, locked up.
Yeah.
For graffiti or open container, then I know that the cops are going to take more serious crime seriously. And that's the problem with law. That's the problem with crime and law and order today is that there are no consequences.
Absolutely not. It's because they're like, it's and they used to give you shit all the time for your unit. It's the hug-a-thug. No, the hug-a-thug is right now what's going on with our prosecutors. And the hug-a-thug is what's going on with society right now. So I can tell you where I live at is very conservative.
Right.
And it's hard for me to wrap my mind around. Now, my daughter lives out west. She lives in the suburb of Portland. And I go out there and I run my big mouth. And she's like, Dad, I'm telling you, you're going to get confronted. I'm like, I'm afraid of these fucking people.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a different breed out there.
Well, right, but where you were talking about the mentality of people that think that your police should be defunded. Now, listen to me, ladies and gentlemen. You spend a lot of money to sleep safe in your bed at night. We've done this over the years, and we really had kind of a wild, wild west in the 70s. For those of us that were old enough to live through that, now I was just a boy then, but there was over 200 cops shot and killed every year, because the violence was horrible. The civil unrest was taking place. So let me tell you something. The people that were out there throwing Molotov cocktails and bricks then are the people that are in your schools and in your colleges right now, pushing that same mindset onto your kids. All right. So your police are necessary. And that's a job that I wanted to do. No one recruited me to be the police. I wanted to do that job. So you need to take care of, and it's always in the not my neighborhood mentality. When you start having those problems here, then who are they calling, Nick? They're calling us. They're calling the police. Go get this guy out of here. Well, I could take him to jail, but in my world, we didn't have a jail to take anybody to. COVID shut things down, staffing issues. We were at a point where unless it was a domestic violence or a felony of the 3rd degree or higher, you didn't go to jail.
Yeah.
We had to take them to timeout. That was fun. and the citizens were like, what do you mean you don't have a jail? We didn't have a jail. What do you want me to do with this guy? I can't take him anywhere. So if we had a person with warrants out of another county, guess what? We drove him to that county and met up with that officer. Here, take this motherfucker so I can get him out of my hair. Sorry, I went down a rabbit hole. We need our cops and we need our street guys, and we need someone to get out there and find that blue line. I mean, right now it is back to the blue line between anarchy and peace. And the blue line is getting thinner because we got some folks that want us out. And the joke was, well, you got a problem, call a fucking crackhead. Well, here's where I don't want this nation turning to is a nation without laws. And the problem is right now is we're not having a lot of law enforcement. And I can tell you right now, as a motorist, it's almost the wild, wild west out there on the roads because you're seeing all kinds of crazy driving that just wouldn't happen 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Pre-COVID. Go ahead.
Yeah. And you're right on the money with that. And, I think where my frustration is I built my whole career around community policing. So when I see like my old agency dusting off ideas that I came up with and bastardizing them.
Well, you shouldn't be upset over that, Nick. Honestly, I mean, sergeant to sergeant, you should be really proud that your legacy continues on. And I know what you're going through, because I'm going through the same thing with my former agency. Is the things that we established and built, and they begrudgingly are like, God damn, that worked.
It is kind of funny because when I see on Twitter and Facebook, I see these pricks that were involved in my investigation. At coffee with cops and barbecue events. And I'm like, hold up a second. You're the asshole that in the hallway was making fun of these community policing events and calling these citizens morons.
Don't you love when the chickens come home to roost?
Like if I didn't have a life and a job, I would go to one of these events and be like, hold up. Didn't you turn around in a meeting say that citizens are really stupid? All it takes
yeah,
a hot dog and they forget crime.
Yeah,
and it's so fucking funny, man. It's funny to me, and I guess where I'm going with this to kind of bring it to a full circle about police reform, and this is not going to be just the first episode talking about it because it's so large that you can't sum it up in a one episode.
Oh yeah, we could talk for days. We could devote a whole month of weekly episodes to this topic and still not hit all the bases.
And I don't mean to, but I do mean to pick on the Memphis chief, because she's the epitome of what aggravates me. And what'll happen is that IACP, you have your conference coming up at the later end of the year. She'll be there. All of her friends will be surrounding her. Oh, you did such a good job navigating through this fucking horrible situation. How'd you do it? Blah, 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 blah. Instead of looking at her and being like, how'd you get it to that point? How did you let it get to that point? And I would respect the IACP if they turn around and they did this. And I don't mean to cut you off, Mark.
No, it's all right.
I would respect them if they turn around and they did this. Before their conference, they ask every one of the chiefs of police specific statistics from their agency. What's your suicide rate? What's your attrition rate? What's your turnover rate? What's this rate? Take those statistics and break these chiefs down into groups and have focus groups at your convention to train these chiefs to address those deficiencies, instead of breaking them off into groups and circle jerking.
See, I was like, to get through this, I was totally into it, and you're like, and jerk them off. I'm like, okay, you got me, fucker.
What if I arrive? Like, what if I'm a struggling chief, and I arrive at the convention, and they say, "Here, Chief Mark, here's your agenda for the conference."
Right.
What's this thing right here? Oh, this is a mandatory seminar for you to go to because your suicide rate is above the national average. What do you mean mandatory? You need to go to this.
Yeah.
And then when you walk in there, there's Dickhead Nick and Mark on stage. And we're the ones that have and listen, this is by no means for you, IACP, to reach out and sign us up for speaking engagement. I don't give a fuck who you invite.
Right.
You don't have to invite me, but stop inviting safe fucks. Stop inviting people that are codependent on your fuckery. Stop. Just stop.
Nick, do you think that they would entertain a membership from us?
You know, I want to join them.
We should join. We should go. We should join ICP and go to the convention.
You know, but here's
with like Chief Dickhead on my shirt.
Yeah, here's the problem is I don't want to give them one fucking red cent because they're already ripping off. They're already like, I want to see their books of what they're intaking a year and what they're putting out, other than these conferences, other than their social media posts. And I watch their stuff. I look at their training that they give their chiefs. It is
training.
Yeah, it is so weak. It's so fucking weak. But all you have to do is just address one issue at a time. Just address the mental health crisis. Just address that. Then when you address that, then start talking about turnover.
Mm-hmm.
Because turnover is not I got hired and then I figured out this police job really isn't for me. No, turnover 90% of the time, and I'd fair to say it's even more than that, is people are leaving law enforcement because of poor law enforcement leadership. I get a phone call from people at least once a week asking me to hey, is my company hiring? I want to get the fuck out. And it's the same thing. And we're losing great fucking people, man.
Well, with my agency, I was just made aware yesterday that another officer is leaving. It's been a steady stream because my agency, people used to never leave, ever. And I was very blessed that 22 years ago that they had a couple of retirements, and that's the only way you ever had an opening in my agency. And the reason why is because Tom Davidson, God rest his soul, was a strong leader and a big advocate for all of his officers. Now, that was good, and sometimes that was bad because he gave grace where grace wasn't earned and respect. You know what I mean? So the problem officer tended to stay there. But anyway, this officer left, or is leaving, I guess yesterday or today's their last day as we record this. And what I'm being told is that the current chief has never acknowledged them, has never said, hey man, best of luck in your future, because they're leaving the job and going to another career because they can't, I'm assuming they can't stand it there. And that guy's the type of guy that only speaks when spoken to, and like walk through the what we used to call the road room where everybody did the reports. He would never say a word, just walk through unless they spoke to him first. He'd never sit down, because my old boss used to sit down. Hey man, how you doing today? Sit down with his coffee, just take a minute to chat and get up and leave. That's being officer first. Now, another thing I wanted to touch on was that I have a lot of friends that are chiefs, and I got to be honest with you, brother. Sometimes you make me cringe because I don't like the broad brush, but that's all right. That's our dynamic of our relationship. But I have a lot of friends that are chiefs, and I respect the fuck out of them. So I want to end this, or kind of wrap this up, with the people that are involved in these chiefs of police associations are generally chiefs of smaller agencies, okay, or really large agencies, who the people that have the time to put into that. So what do you get with that work product? You get a sub-rate work product, because my one friend that was a chief of a large agency in the south end of Montgomery County said this to me. He says, Mark, I don't have time for this fucking shit. They're always asking for people to fill board memberships. And either you really good with your time management, where some of them are, okay, or you just don't, you're not busy enough. He said, I don't have time for that shit. He said, I get out and I work with my men. This guy, you know, he would jump out, he would hear a traffic stop and roll up with his officers. You know, he was obviously in an unmarked with lights in it, but that's the type of guy he was. You know, show up on midnight shift. Guys, you doing all right? Or, you know, he'd be out somewhere and slide through and talk to the evening watch guys. But those are the guys that are connected to their department. And in my world, you know, a large agency here where I'm at is 90 officers. You know, the Dayton Police Department's well over 250, but we're the biggest in the area. You know, now I realize LAPD, Hollywood division, is 250 officers alone, you know. So yeah, that's my perspective on the world. But where I'm making that is that some of these associations, you don't have the cream. The cream doesn't rise to the top. You got just an office filler. So to give them, I don't want to say a break. Yeah. But, you know, maybe we don't have the best people in those positions. And that's where, you know, if you are that good chief and that leader, man, we need you. Really, the industry needs you. Yeah. And I'll say this is I know a lot of really good chiefs. The problem is that they get lumped in just like all law enforcement is bad. But the problem is the difference is that the majority of officers out there are 99.9% of them are good. Yes. It's yes. But as far as chiefs, 99% of the chiefs out there are not doing what they should be doing, and that's taking good care of their people. And by taking good care of their people, if you go to manscaped.com and use the code Roll Call Room, you get 20% off. That's the best care you can take for yourself. Right now, man. If you want to take good care of your people, and by people, I mean, You should buy it for your lieutenant for the next time you go up for the sergeant's exam.
Listen, if you want to buy a fantastic gift for one of your commanders,
yeah, manscaped.com.
Manscaped.com.
Promo code Roll Call Room, 20% off. Do it today.
It's our major sponsor. But
that was.
I will say this. We're gonna wrap this episode. I hope that everybody got something out of this, and if you didn't get anything out of it, rewind it, listen to it again, or watch it again on YouTube, because what we're talking about is real, concrete stuff. This ain't a safe podcast. This isn't something where we're gonna hold punches,
right.
And that's always been the RCR way since day one, since we started this thing. But what I'm excited about is I'm excited to have Mark come on.
No, it's a pleasure to be here. It's an honor to be here, really, to give the message out there, because I can tell you guys, I was that midnight sergeant sitting around frustrated. I found this podcast, and I'm like, holy cow, these guys really connect with me. And, you're not alone out there. You're not alone. We talk to people across the nation that are feeling the same burn. It's like, you're wanting to go out and be the police and take care of the bad guys. And that's exactly the environment we need to be cultivating that back again and finding that good balance. Now, we don't want you crazy out there like the Memphis 5 beating the shit out of people, but you need to do your job. You need to be safe. And most importantly, you need to go home safe to your family. And the best thing is we need to keep you mentally alive and aware. And boys and girls, it all starts with sleep. So get you a good night's sleep and rest.
Yeah.
Go ahead, sir.
A couple of shameless plugs before we come off. If you go on rollcallroom.com, the homepage there, click on Patreon. We are really, really pushing Patreon because we do want to expand this stuff. We've got some things that we're trying to work on in the background, and that requires funding. I'm not above begging. But you don't just.
It's like being a contract negotiator again, right?
Yeah, you don't just give money and then that's it. We've made some really great tiers for you to contribute. We have autographed posters in every one of the tiers. So no matter how much you put in Patreon, you're getting one of those. Mm-hmm. Free copies of all of my books and stuff like that, and cool resources and things. So please go on Patreon, check us out. You can go on rollcallroom.com. Right on the homepage says Patreon. Just click that. Also, for a YouTube video, people, our website is right here. Mm-hmm. Promo code for Manscaped is right up here. Mm-hmm. And if you need to get a hold of us or you'd like to be a future guest on the show, you can reach me at nick@rollcallroom.com, or you can reach Mark.
Yes.
At
Mark with a C, M-A-R-C, at rollcallroom.com.
Yeah, M-A-R-C.
Yeah.
Don't be that fucking person who says M-A-R-K.
Well, to be honest with you, my dad hated me. So he's like, this boy, he's going to spell both names his entire life. So with that, folks, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to check out our partners. And we got future announcements about that. The Shield Within, Spinning Our Gears, Badge to the Bone, Two Fired Cops. I mean, we got all these different places that we're slowly incorporating into the conglomerate that we'll announce later on. And be safe to each other. Mark, what do you got, bud? Officers who are out there and you're listening, please, there is resources out there, and what Nick and I have talked about, and it's some future things that's coming along, especially with the media company that we've put together, resources for you to protect yourself and to take care of yourself. There is your population, and I know the loud voices is what you tend to hear, and we tend to focus on that 1% of the negativity of our job. But remember, your silent majority wants you, they need you, and they appreciate you. I can tell you, in my world, I couldn't go out to a restaurant and eat without having my meal picked up for me. And I think the majority of cops that I talk to across my state and the tri-state area all feel the same thing. You're needed, you're wanted, and you're valued. Most importantly, and reason why we decided to partner with this show, and I'm honored to be here, is to get that message out to remind everyone that you are valued and you are appreciated, even though the knucklehead maybe in your command staff isn't showing appreciation. But be safe, take care of yourself.
And last piece of advice is make sure you use some sort of lubricant when you're in your commander's office. Don't go raw.
Yes. And Manscaped first.
Manscaped.com. Code roll call room and get 20% off. So, all right, folks, be safe, and we'll see you on the next one.
Law enforcement suicides are at an all-time high right now. One of the causes is poor leadership within the law enforcement profession. Nick, the host of the Roll Call Room podcast, has written a book, Police Mental Barricade, A Survivor's Guide to Poor Law Enforcement Leadership. This book is a raw and powerful look into suicide and how poor leadership decisions contribute to law enforcement suicides. Buy the book now at mentalhealthbarricade.com and stop the stigma.